Hey, are you a perfectionist? Does everything have to be just right before you make a move, do a social post, have a friend over for dinner, or just to get out of the house? We're going to talk about that today on A Bit of Insight with Lisa Mosby. I'm your host. Thanks so much for joining us today. We talk about health, wealth, and everything else. And today we're talking a little bit about mindset because mindset matters. And my guest is a seasoned TV podcast show host, coach, speaker, and best-selling author of 2 books and a contributor to 3 more books. She's a visionary behind the Courageous Clarity coaching program designed to inspire spiritually minded entrepreneurs to find their voice, cultivate their confidence, and leave a legacy of love. And I love those terms, legacy of love. In fact, I have that in my LinkedIn profile. And I think that's what helps to bind me with Charla. She has decades of encouraging people to embrace bold faith while reflecting God's unconditional love. And Charla combines her expertise in personal development with her passion that every word matters. She's retired after 34 years as an award-winning flight attendant with a plethora of life experiences, including being an Olympic torch bearer and a Zig Ziglar legacy certified trainer. And Zig was one of my first trainers. My dad introduced me to him when I was still in elementary school. So I Will See You at the Top, which was one of his early books. Charla and I have so many ways that our lives intertwined that I was thrilled to have her say yes to being a guest and us getting to have some time together and chat. She guides clients to amplify their voices and shine their light, love, and joy every day. So join Charla on her courageous journey of purpose, hope, and clarity. Check out her show on Win Win Women TV, where this show is hosted, and it's called The Charla Anderson Show, collector and connector of fascinating people, and everyone is fascinating. Welcome, my dear friend.
Hey, especially you. Okay, I always add that in my head because
I didn't have
everyone,
that in my show notes,
I,
especially
I
you.
just,
Yeah,
I
I've heard
just
you
say
say that.
that. I just say it is. I just think it's fun because everybody is fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, they really are when we get to dive in and chat with them. But honestly, you have had an amazing, incredible life, traveled all over the world, landed, or have you always been in Texas? And I know how you say the great state of Texas, and you are the number one fan of Texas, the number one resident. You're always telling me what Texas is the greatest place in the world to live. And how did you choose Texas over all of the other places that you've been to, or were you raised there?
Born and raised in Houston, I moved to Fort Worth area, which is that's what I love about this area. Fort Worth area of Texas is it's DFW, but FW is Fort Worth, right? So Dallas, people would say back when I was still living in Houston, before I moved up here, they'd go, I'm going to Dallas. And I'm going, why? There's nothing to do over there. You got to go to Fort Worth. We got a cattle drive every day. We got the stockyards. We've got incredible museums. Oh, so much to do in Fort Worth. So I became kind of an ambassador for the Fort Worth side and moved up here and raised my family, my 3 kids, over in
Yeah.
this vicinity.
And I know you have a guest room someday, at an Airbnb guest room. So you're inviting people to come check out Fort Worth. And I want to be one of those people on the list. At some point, I will get myself there because I would love to see your city through your eyes, because I've heard you on numerous occasions talk about how wonderful Fort Worth is. So feel free to
It,
sprinkle a little bit of that Southern Fort Worth inspiration and energy and big vivacious dreams into our conversation today, because I'm sure people will appreciate it.
So
You know,
the tagline for Fort Worth is where the West begins, and the rest of that is actually and the East peters out. So I mean, there's been a Dallas Fort Worth 30 miles apart, but night and day in many other ways. But it's just
interesting. And I've been to Dallas, but I have not ever been to Fort Worth. And it's right. It's like Minneapolis, St. Paul. I grew up on the St. Paul side. And when I was a kid, we didn't cross the river, you know?
it's
So
it,
I'm sure that that's probably a similar feel to that area. We're talking about imperfection today, and I'd have to say that there was a time when I didn't leave my house without being all dressed up with my makeup on. Now, this was almost 40 years ago. No, 40 years ago, when I was 18 years old, I first started my first business, and I needed people to see me as a professional. And so I wouldn't go out of the house unless I looked like a businesswoman, dressed up with, all the stuff done. And times have changed. I still like my hair done and pretty nails, but I'll totally walk out of the house with bedhead and, just go to the grocery store. But there was a time when it was all about that perfectionist stuff. So that's one way that I see people, in the realm of imperfection, where we're fearful of doing things unless it's just right. Nike says it best: just do it. Don't get
Mm.
stuck in the perfectionist fantasy of planning, and preparing. Just let's dive in and get going. So that's the motto of the show today. Let's dive in and get going. So when I threw this topic out to you, what came to mind for you? What were you thinking about for imperfection? What should we be talking about today?
Well, I did raise my hand and go, hey, I'm the poster child, so perfect. But what you just talked about, back in the day, as a flight attendant, we were required, even as to travel on, on the passes and stuff, we were required to wear pantyhose, pantsuits, or, we finally got to where we could wear pantsuits instead of dresses. I mean, back in the day, there was some unwritten, but everybody followed. Well, some of those were written. They were rules for crew. But Mary Kay, so Mary Kay, a lot of years you didn't leave the house without pantyhose. Now I'm okay that some of those things have gone by the wayside, and maybe the pendulum has swung the opposite way a little bit. There's not a lot of what you would call, I don't like using the word normal, but the parameters of common decency or common courtesies or whatever they are. And people walk. Now you got dressed up to go on an airplane. Now you wear your pajama pants and a tank top, and it's kind of common that we're a little less, much more casual, I would say. So that reminded me of that, where we were required to wear
Yeah. Even
pantyhose,
church.
and
Yeah.
especially church. Now you couldn't even wear pants at church.
We had our Sunday best. We called them the Sunday best, and we weren't allowed to wear them the rest of the time. We weren't allowed to wear them out to the playground. We had to change out of our clothes when we came home from church. It's what we wore to church. And now you see anything goes at church.
And that's okay. To me, I just saw a thing yesterday, I think it was, if you come to church and you're hungover, you're drug addict, you do whatever, you sitting in church, you come sit by me, because this is where you belong. You need to be
Get there.
welcomed and not judged. And I
Yeah.
believe a lot of our churches went a little too far on that.
Yeah.
So you just
The,
got to be loved.
yes, I agree. Let's embrace people where they're at. My thought on that also is that because we don't have any rules around it or guidelines around it, I think it also can affect our self-esteem and our self-confidence. I know all through COVID, I was teaching 14 workshops a week and on Zoom, but I would get up, and my first one was usually like 8 in the morning. So when other people are sleeping in, watching TV in their pajamas all day long, I would get up, dress, put my shoes on. I never did a Zoom training call without my shoes on. Like I was dressed from head to toe as if I was in the office. And it made a difference for me on how I showed up, and I felt prepared. Even, it's so funny, not a lot of where people wear perfume, and people have so many allergies and things, but I do like a few fragrances, and I've had the same ones. In fact, the one that I love the most, you can no longer buy it. And so I have a little bottle left. And I put perfume on before I do my podcast every time. Hair, makeup, and I put my perfume on. When I put that on, I know that I'm ready to be here, because this is really the only live show that I do that is, I mean, we do Facebook Lives and things like that, but I'm showing up here for my guest. I want to be completely ready, and I still put my perfume on. So there's these little rituals and habits that I find that help me to show up and be fully present. Now, is that perfectionism? Or is that preparation? Right?
I think preparation, I mean, and good habits and the mindset, so we're mindset people, right? So, yeah, really, I think that gives your mind a signal that, yes, I'm ready to do the work. Yes, I'm ready to be real, be present, and do the job. I have my show is Wednesdays live at 1 p.m. on Win Win Women. Uh, and so I call Wednesday show day. I do I shower and I mean, I don't shower every day, but I do the hair different. I get everything done. And it feels like it's a preparation. It's like a ritual almost that helps. That's not, to me, that's not preparation. That's more habit, or I like the word preparation, what you were saying. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that type of thing. I don't think that's perfectionism. I think it's respect for your audience. It's
Yeah.
respect for yourself. I mean, it would be, I'm sure there are times that if you just run in the, you run in and everything's gone crazy outside and you go in and, oh, I'm on my show and it's not done. That's okay too, because uh, authenticity, this is
Yeah.
part of the
For
thing,
sure.
is I was thinking about perfection. Authenticity is really the new sexy. I mean,
Yeah.
people want real. They don't want you. I don't want to have somebody be something they're not. But there's that sense of self-respect that you just were talking about, I think.
Yeah, self-respect and respect for the other people, the audience or the guest that's there. It kind of brings me to the idea of when you have people over to your house. We were never allowed to sit in the living room because that was that special room for other people. And so as I grew up, and I understand that my mom you didn't have mom and dad didn't have a lot of money, so they preserved that room and they always wanted it to look good and they didn't want kids spilling on it or eating in there. We didn't have a TV in our living room. We did have a TV in the basement growing up. Um, but for me, like I use the good china. In fact, my salad bowl is a serving bowl that's, it's my mom's good china. When she passed, my niece or my nephew and his wife got most of it, but I kept a serving bowl and a serving platter and a couple of pieces of silverware for me. And I use it as my everyday wear because it doesn't need to be saved for perfection. It reminds me of my mom when I'm preparing food to nurture my body. I think of my mom at that time. And so, like, it's again, for me, it's more ritualistic. It's not a perfectionism thing. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but I like to sit with a placemat. I like to use a nice bowl and a nice cup, and maybe I only have one of them for me, but I like those things. And it's not about the perfectionism, it's about the preparedness. It's about how I feel when I'm doing those things. And I keep driving this home because I think there's a fine line where we think this is what we have to do. Like when we have people over for dinner, there was a pastor. Uh, he's an he's an Anglican priest from Tennessee. That's what it was. I just found my notes on it. And he coined the phrase scruffy hospitality about a decade ago. He and his wife would enjoy hosting friends, but they always went through this checklist of mowing the lawn and, vacuuming and cleaning the playroom and buying special food and doing all of these things. And they said, he said, we didn't invite people over very often because it was a huge production. And I think a lot of us today even, feel that. And there was a special menu and there was added grocery costs. And he said, he decided, I don't want to do that. It's not about them seeing my lawn or them seeing my clean house or even me being able to prepare the best food. I want to be with people. I want to spend time with them. And you've talked about this. It's like you have friends that come over, you met a new friend that's 6 minutes away. And, it's like, I just enjoy her company. I want her to come over. So let go of the perfectionist look of what that needs to be and have a new policy. I always had it, my door's always open. You can stop by anytime. I always have stuff in the freezer. I can prepare something in a moment's notice because I love the company. Oh, so what if my book bags are sitting on the kitchen counter or the dishes are still in the sink? I'm human just like everybody else, and I want people to come there. How do we embrace that type of imperfectionism where it's about our relationships and our people and just loving on others?
That is the key in what you're saying. You reminded me that back in the day, I had 3 little kids. I was living, I was flying flight attendant, and we finally decided, I mean, I'm a hostess, I'm a server, right?
Yeah.
And I started having every Sunday night after we had Sunday morning, Sunday night church, and after Sunday night church, we just started having people come over, and there were sticky notes places, and there were, I was like, you coming? for people? Or are you coming for, perfection, right? So it really was a fun ritual for quite some time that we just had people over and, whatever we happened to have in the, sometimes it was popcorn, and sometimes I'd bring things, chocolates from Germany, or it just
Yeah.
kind of be whatever. And I felt like, I think that was what you just said. I was able to, at the time, just like, hey, it's what, so you're going to have somebody over.
Yeah.
And I love having things together, but and what you just reminded me of is when literally you fix your food and sit down and eat. I would call it an awareness and conscious being present and in savoring and enjoying. I believe that if more of us are just, I know, living alone, I just go down there, grab something, I'd stand up at the counter and, just get something to eat while I'm pedaling around. And I like the idea of respecting yourself enough to be present for yourself as well, self care, uh, in that regard. I love that.
Yeah, taking the time, creating those rituals. Mindfulness when it comes to dining. It's about the mindfulness and feeding and nourishing the body, and then being present with the people that you're enjoying that meal with. And, it may not be every single day. We grew up family dinners up until my mom and dad passed. I mean, well into my late 50s now. My mom passed last year. We still had family dinner almost every Sunday night. And if, we had to move it around a little, but we'd have 15, 16 people, nieces, nephews, everybody. We started going out to a restaurant. Buca de Beppo has this huge round table. It seats 16 people. And then they have some longer tables in the back rooms. And so that was, at least monthly, we would do a dining out experience. So nobody had to deal with all of that. But Sunday nights was always family dinner. Whoever's available, come on over. And it was kind of a throw together. Sometimes it would be a quick pickup. There's restaurants that can prepare enough food, bulk food for that, as things got harder for us to cook and prepare for everyone. But those were the best memories that I have. Like I can let go of a lot of things, but those family dinners where you got to see everybody and we were laughing and being joyful. And it wasn't about a tidy house, and sometimes we had to eat on paper plates because there were so many of us. I didn't have enough dishes. But those are life's experiences, and we lose out on those life experiences when we have this perfectionist attitude or mindset that everything has to be just right before we do this. And I started in
Well,
this
and
area.
that's
Go ahead. Yeah.
launching. So you're talking, what we've talked about mostly so far is, and us, our home,
Yeah.
and not as much the business other than the show. So
Yeah.
I think you've got there. It's almost two different things, but is it?
Yeah. And I want to go into that. That's where I was kind of headed with this, is the business thing. I think people understand it. I wanted to put it in that context of us personally, but our person, our food, our house, because I think that lands for folks, that, you can see that it's obvious that maybe your perfectionist mindset is blocking you from embracing life fully, or embracing your family and those things. But let's jump over to business. Let's look at that. How do we stop ourselves from starting with that perfectionist mindset? Like, I have to have the blog post perfect. I have to refine and refine and refine, or I need to script out what I'm going to say on my Facebook Live so I don't fumble through my words. Can you speak to that? I mean, you've written books, you know what it's like to have to script things out and get edits and get that just right before you publish it. And then you're doing a show as well. So I'm sure you can speak a lot to how do you get the mindset right without feeling things need to be perfect before you start.
Well, my name means to chat, so I just talk, I have no, no on the show. It's like, we can just, I have an idea, but it's not necessarily scripted very often. And really want to get better at doing that, just because, when you have to, they want a subject, they want an outline or something ahead of time sometimes. So when you're speaking in public, but I said earlier, that authenticity is kind of the new sexy, right? And so I think people relate to vulnerability. So when you let yourself be real, and just real, with preparation. You know, it's not, doesn't mean no preparation, but I found some uh, a quote actually. So I think that imperfection also will add depth and character to you. So think about this. The Japanese art of kintsugi or whatever it's called, you know how they, if a cup is broken, they repair it with gold. You've seen those beautiful cups with all the gold in there. That's adding value to something that's broken, a broken piece of pottery. And I think that's a really good analogy for ship it. And so I wanted to mention Seth Godin. Are you familiar with Seth Godin?
Yeah.
And I actually was going to find a quote. I was looking for a quote, and then I ran across a bunch of his quotes, and I was like, "Whoa, there was a whole lot around all that." But you know, he says, "But of course, excuse me, but of course, survival and success are not the same thing. The lizard brain is the reason you're afraid. The reason you don't do all the art that you can. The reason you don't ship when you can." And his word is ship it. The lizard brain is the source of the resistance. And that's, I think, in his book, Linchpin. Um, but, you know, we've got this voice in our head that never shuts up. It's going to tell you the same thing it told you yesterday and the last 20 years. It's not going to ever tell you something new and encourage you to do something new. So this lizard brain, it's that he calls it, I call it, you know, Charla's chatter or whatever, this, you know, this voice that never stops. And if you don't think you have one, it's the one that just said, I don't have a voice in my head. So, you know, and that is so true to me, that we listen to this thing, well, it's got to be better, it's got to be better, it's got to be perfect. And what if we could literally just kind of go, you know, thanks for sharing, but I'm going to do this anyway. And, you know, I appreciate, you know, you kind of be kind to it because it's not going to go away. But you
Yeah.
can just say, shut up. But that is I thought that was a really good quote, that he, you know, just ship it is better um, than holding on and trying to find that perfectionism. And if you, so Godin, Sethgodin, he's got a ton of books, and they're all good. The Purple Cow and Poke the Box. Um, you know, so anxiety is experiencing failure in advance. Think about
Yeah.
that. We
Yeah.
think,
But I learned another, and I don't know who this is from, but I learned recently that it may have been Simon Sinek talking about anxiety and excitement. You experience the same physical feelings. You know, when you get the butterflies in the stomach, maybe you're perspiring a little bit. You have a little anxiety in the throat where you're clearing the throat. Those can be traits of anxiety, and they can also be traits of excitement. So what if we just did a little mind shift? When we're saying anxiety, if we replace that word with excitement, I'm feeling excited, because excitement is the anticipation of what's about to come, and it can be a positive, versus I'm anxious about what's to come, and it may not be a positive. I mean, in fact, it may cause angst. It may stop you from moving forward rather than being curious and adventurous and excited to move forward. And there's times for anxiety. Maybe you're in a sketchy neighborhood, or something's happening, and you want to be alert and aware and it's anticipatory for that. But a lot of times we use that word anxiety when it can easily be replaced with excitement and give us 180 degree view of the other side of it, like going forth with joy versus fear. And I love that about Seth. That's what he tries to bring to light, is that reversal of how we look at things, how we see things. There's so many great speakers out there that do that. My favorite is probably Simon Sinek. I love his A Bit of Optimism. In fact, that's kind of where my name for my show came from, is like, hey, I want to just talk about my experience as an entrepreneur and being in business and those kinds of things. Let's jump over to the to-do list. As I'm sitting here and looking at this book that I call my to-do list, when I think of things that I want to do or ideas I have, I put them in a book. And the book, it says Faith, Hope, and Love on the front of it. And it's a book of my ideas, things that I want to get done. And I think many of us have a really long to-do list, and it can create a productivity speed bump when our to-do list is too long. When we have so many things, sometimes we throw in the towel and say, I'm going to do nothing because it's so overwhelming. I don't want to do it. And sometimes we work and work and work and work. And we have to justify our existence to get through all of those things by the end of the day. And we don't enjoy that. So let's tie perfection into that, because so many of us have that long to-do list. How do we deal with it?
I I am the poster child for what you just talked about. There is so much that physically in my home, because I've had a year of, or several years really, but transitions and, chaos and paper, just stuff. And somehow I'm really resistant to tackle it, right? So it's on there, but it's weighing everything down, so it's heavy. It's everything is energy, right? So that attic full of stuff is always there in your head. You're carrying it around. You don't think of it all the time, but it's still there. It's baggage. And I feel like when we can take action is the key. Right action is the key
Yeah.
to any of that. But taking just taking a corner, getting something done instead of it literally, I experienced this recently very strongly that I'm like, I just not gonna, I've got it, I'm not gonna do anything. I forget it. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I want somebody to do it for me or with me, you know.
Yeah.
And so on the to-do list thing, I found we've got a lot of things, but then the things that we need to just run and get milk or call this person or whatever. I started using a sticky note on the front of my book, my calendar book. It's a bit the bigger sticky note that's postcard size maybe, and that's kind of a running to-do list of things that need to be done right now that I can I don't need to keep in my book that I need to go to get gas in the car, things like that. Those are little things that you can throw away, and that was that kind because I would like, oh, I need to write down something so I don't forget when I go out to get something and that's a simple little trick that I just kind of picked up a few years ago to help me not because I've got the perfectionist thing about, oh, I can't write in my journal because I don't want to mess it up. And I had a guest on not too long ago, and she's like, she creates journals, and she doesn't call them journals, she calls them the commonplace. And she said she writes every single thing, recipes, whatever. And then when she has a general idea about when it was, she can go back and find it. And I really like that because I've been a perfectionist on journal writing or writing and because I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to make, and it's who cares? It's me. It's for me.
It's just about getting your thoughts out on paper. In fact, I have one, two, three, I have six of them sitting next to me. And I've been flipping through them because I'm working on putting together some workshops and worksheets. And there's principles that I've written in there when I'm sitting in meetings and things. So I love going back and flipping through them and finding those ideas. And I just like when I'm talking to people, if I hear a great idea, I'll plug it in there and write it down. So I have those kind of journals, but my idea book, my to-do list book, I do what you do. I have the larger Post-it notes. And at the beginning, Sunday night, I will flip through my idea book, and rather than calling it a to-do list, it's an idea book because ideas, I don't know, that's more inviting to me than using the to do. I've heard somebody call it the ta-da book, like ta-da, it's done. Ta-da. And that's better than to do. I'm not a fan of the to-do list, but I go in there and I take the Post-it note, put it on the front of the book, and it's like, here's my priorities for the week. And sometimes I'll put in Sunday, the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, here's my 3 things for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I'll pull them out of that book. And it's amazing how you can get things done when you can choose 1, 2, or 3 things, and that's it. All I have to do is 3 things. And by the end of 7 days, look at all the things that I've accomplished. And they might be little things like I need to get a new quote for my car insurance, or I need to make an appointment to go to the doctor, or, those things can be on there, but it's just 3 things. And if I write down those 3 things for each of the days at the beginning of the week, You know, by Wednesday, how many of those oftentimes get done? Like the whole week gets done. I can go back to the book and say, wait, I need something new for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So, playing around with that, I call it the reptilian mind, but the higher brain versus the lower brain, or the reptilian brain, playing around with it, like feed it, like, okay, this is all I can do. I can only do three things, you reptilian brain, but I'm going to write them down. And then the higher brain sees that and it pulls you into getting it done because it's manageable. It's not this huge, overwhelming, long list of things to do. Three things. I can do three things. I can get dressed, put my clothes, take a shower, get dressed, and brush my teeth. I can, get dressed and go to the grocery store and get gas. Like three things makes it a whole lot easier for our brain to manage it. And we don't have to feel that overload. And we don't have to get ready to get ready to get ready to do something. We can just do it. Like Mel Robbins says, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go do those three things today. Yeah.
I love Mel Robbins and that whole and her whole story around how she came up with that. But yeah, just it's so action is literally the even the antidote to depression, actually. And I mean, just taking that a step to do something. And I am in a coaching group with a wonderful lady named Brenda Byers, and she has the Prosper mentorship. And she's got a prosper daily prosper in all things is her thing, but a prosper daily planner. And it's like, basically you pick the one thing, but then you pick the three things, and hers is very much on the three things. And then the 20-minute timer, that's three periods in an hour that you can focus on this just for that till that timer goes off, and you can get a lot more done focused on one thing in 20 minutes than you can in 2 hours of multitasking kind of
Yeah.
things, and being pulled in all directions. And I'm talking to myself.
Yeah, we teach
Certainly.
best what we most need to learn. Yeah, that's called I don't know if she uses the term Pomodoro, but the Pomodoro technique is you set a timer. And remember the old days, they had the tomato timer. You set a timer for 20 minutes and you just focused. You don't take the phone calls. You don't look at email. You just like, this is what I'm going to do for 20 minutes. So I think we're bringing that back. I've heard a couple of people talk about that. And, with our attention span and our technology has lowered our attention span. So we're scrolling and we want to see things in 4 to 8 seconds now. Getting our brain back to that place of being able to focus for 20 minutes to move something forward, an accomplishment, it relieves some of that overwhelm as we start to move into these things and get them done, checking them off, doing the best that we can, whatever time of day it is. Your best at 9 a.m. may not be your best at 9 p.m. because you're tired or fatigued, but things still need to get done. So giving yourself the grace that it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be done, moving in that direction and resisting the urge to, to stockpile or to wait on something, and just Mel Robbins, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get her done.
That is a huge trick. I mean, you look at any rocket, right? They got the countdown. It's a mental trick, and you don't give non-negotiables is another thing I'm working on,
Yeah.
non-negotiables, and having a non-negotiable of, like you said, you got dressed to your shoes. There was an old fly lady thing. You always get dressed to your shoes. Well, that didn't really work for me because I'm a barefoot girl and I was out in the garden. I like barefoot.
Yeah.
But just getting breasts, I call it now, before I can go get my coffee, I need to be what I'm calling it camera ready, a Zoom ready. And I don't have to be made up or dressed up, but I have to have something on that I can answer the door in, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm making that a non-negotiable, because there were a few years, I think, that I would sit down to do my reading in the morning or my quiet time, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm still in my pajamas because had never stopped. I didn't have a timer. I didn't use my timer. And so that is just my one thing that I've started working on, just making sure that before I can get my first cup of Zurge, my wonderful memory boosting coffee,
Yeah.
I've got to get dressed. And that has it makes a huge difference. I mean, really does for me, because it was so crazy. I would be going, gosh, it's 4 in the afternoon and I haven't even barely found anything to eat. I'm just kind of getting in, I'm reading or writing or whatever I was doing. but getting dressed gives you that, we talked about that little sense of uh, a little more professional or a little bit more in the present.
Just start of the day. My mom was insisting, I was caring for my mom the last couple of years, and her non-negotiable was she didn't live in pajamas. She needed to be dressed by 10 o'clock every day. And so I timed it. I did my morning 8 to 9 empowerment call. And then usually at 9 o'clock, I would leave enough time so I could make sure that I got her dressed. And so I'd go down and get her coffee. I'd go do my call. I'd go down and get her dressed. And then I'd go do my next appointment. I'd go down, we do meds. And so we had all of these non-negotiables, and I just plugged her non-negotiables into my schedule so that I could continue to work and care for her from home. And I think it's important, when we create these kinds of routines, we take, I'll use the word anxiety. We take the anxiety out of what's to come when we have certain plans. I have something called my 12 before 12. There's 12 things that I do before noon. And if the rest of the day gets away from me, and I did this back when I was caring for both my parents, because sometimes we'd have doctor's appointments and, things were coming up. And so I scheduled their stuff in the afternoon, but I had the mornings, 12 before 12. I knew I would have a good day, and whatever I was able to move forward during that time frame was enough. Now, if I could do more, that's even better, but at least I got those things done in the morning, and those things didn't start to pile up on me and cause overwhelm. I could get them done, whether it's paying the bills or getting out and doing my Bible study, getting out and moving my body for 30 or 40 minutes. Those were those kinds of things. There are a few work things in there that I wanted to make sure that I did every day. They were non-negotiable. So I love that term, non-negotiable. The other one is everything for me. Everything happens in divine time. Do you rush to get things done and you don't have it scheduled, and then, oh gosh, I forgot that one more thing. I started adopting this idea that everything happens in divine time. So if I didn't get it done today, it wasn't a priority. It wasn't the divine timing for that thing. Put it on the schedule for tomorrow, or write it in on the calendar on Friday, so that it does get done. And I'm not feeling this urge to rush all the time. Like, give me a chance to catch my breath, to breathe. And I did learn that caring for both of my parents. It's like, if my dad decided that he wanted to reminisce for a while, I would text my VA and say, reschedule me, because I knew I had a limited amount of time with them. And if they needed something, I wanted to be there. And that was a non-negotiable for me. Nothing else was more important during that time that I got to be with them. So how does that show up for you? That urgent rush to get things done? Do you have a divine time operation? How do you manage your time when it comes to perfection or
Uh,
imperfection?
well, I'm just going to speak to my granddaughter that lived with me the first 2 years of her life. She's 3 now, and oh my goodness, and she comes, you know, sometimes quite often, and then and nearly at least every other week she'll spend the night one night,
Yeah.
and uh, you know, she's important. She's what's important. She's nothing else gets done for the most part. There may be some things that and she is so good. I'm like, her mom works from home and she just has, well, I've got a meeting now. You need to, go uh, be quiet and play by yourself. And she's really, really excellent at all those things. But yeah, so I think that everything is always working out for me is one of the
Yeah.
things excuse me, mantras that I'm working toward, everything is always working out for me. And when it isn't, it still is, because where else do you have to be than where you are right this second? And that's a big theme in my show and my talk, where we don't have anywhere else to be other than this exact second. We can't be last second. We can't change the last word. We can't change last week, last month, last year, last generation. We can't change that our grandparents met, and everything since the beginning of time, let there be light, has conspired to having us in this specific moment, in this specific time, having this specific conversation. There is nowhere else for us to be right now. And that is a concept that it should be so normal, but I don't think most of us see it that way. I don't, where else do we have to be? So where you are is all you got. You might as well love it right now. And if you don't like it, you don't like where you are, you don't have last second to change. You have the next second to change. Every word matters. You can change what you say to yourself or to others. And if you, when you mess up, you certainly do mess up. It's all, you apologize, make a new agreement, and then move forward. So that is you don't have anywhere else to be than where you are. So when you can acknowledge it, when you can say everything is always working out for me, and when it isn't, when I'm in this moment that is not good in my estimation, I've still been provided for. I could be, if I was in the gutter, if I'm in a hospital bed, if I can take a breath, I've been provided for, right? If you can take a breath, you may not like where you are, but your choices have brought you here for and everything is choice. That's another story for another day, but when we can grasp that we have nowhere else to be than where we are right now, and then we can start moving in a direction we prefer in our next step, but not our last step. And I don't think that covered anything about what you were talking about, or maybe it did, but
It
that is
did. It's
such a
like
running.
let the future be the future and live in divine time, which is the present, right? That's divine time is the present. Let the future be the future.
The
Yep.
now, and we hear it, we hear
Yep.
it a lot. Be present, be in the now, but I don't think we're taught how to do that very much. I've never been taught. I've heard it a million times, but
Yeah.
what does that mean? Be still and know. It's like,
Yeah.
take that deep breath in right now. On my show, I do a breathing exercise. Be still for a few seconds and know. And I believe that, entertainment, well, you might as well see her since she popped up. Entertainment is the highest value in our society. It has become so high in our society that we can't have 2 seconds without our devices, and and we're dinged and dinged, and the social medias have figured that out, and it's just crazy to me how I'll see something, and I think I'm just going to click on that, and an hour later I've watched 4 or 5 different things, or 10. you know our time is you know is just being entertained away, and what, I do believe it's a very high value in a lot of our culture now. All the kids, are scrolling, and it's not pretty.
Which is like follow the reverse golden rule. That is, be compassionate to yourself. A little compassion to yourself goes a long way. For me, I've dumbed down my smartphone. I have all notifications turned off. People go, I sent you a text. Why didn't you respond? It's like, I don't live by text. I don't respond. I will check my phone at least twice a day. I will check email twice a day, once in the morning and once at 4 o'clock. If you send something, I will get to it at one of those stations in my schedule, but I'm not tied to every second of every day needing to check Messenger and email and texting and all of the different places, WhatsApp, Telegram. I'm on all of them. I have all of them, and I will check them all twice a day. So I just, people who know me know that a text message does not mean an instant response from me, and that's self-care to me. That I cannot be tied to my phone. And sometimes I'm sitting here at my desk and I see it pop up, and I will respond. I can glance at it and see when things are coming in, but that doesn't mean that I have to be derailed from what I'm doing. I have forced myself into saying, I will focus until that buzzer goes off. I will focus on this project. Otherwise, I get nothing done in a day, jumping from one conversation to the next and not fulfilling the commitments that I made to the previous client. So I have to schedule those focused times in, and time for self-care. Mondays, I'm now scheduling a bike ride because I had a brutal 13, 14-hour day yesterday, letting people schedule in back to back to back to back. And I was completely exhausted, and I didn't show up well for the last 2 people of the day, because I was too tired. I needed to have a little bit of a walk, go outside, get some fresh air, and then do those meetings. So that's on me. And that's that's where this idea of the reverse golden rule, self-care and compassion for myself, so that I can better serve the people I work with. How's that show up for you, Charla?
Well, the coffee, back in the day, we actually had cups and saucers.
Yes, I do drink with a cup and saucer. My cappuccino cup has a saucer.
But I'm guessing there's young people that wouldn't have a clue what a saucer is, a flying saucer maybe, but they didn't call that anymore. But the analogy, and I think this came up recently, but the analogy, you pour your coffee into the cup, right? My daddy used to pour it into the saucer and drink out of the saucer, I think just to cool it down a little bit. I've heard other people do that, but what I love is keep filling until the cup is overflowing. So your cup is you. The saucer is what you serve from. You cannot serve from an empty cup. So when you just serve from what's in the saucer, so keep your cup filled so that you can serve well from the saucer.
I love that analogy.
And what you were talking about just a moment ago, I'm very jealous in a way of that. I maybe have to and of the setting on. I need to turn my notifications off. I did turn off some of them recently. I'm like, I just I this is it's always like something's popping up, right? So it's called discipline. So small disciplines.
Mhm.
And if you remember Jim Rohn, he would say, small disciplines repeated over time create one thing as opposed to small errors repeated over time. And he used the analogy of an apple a day or a candy bar a day. Tomorrow we don't notice a difference, but 6 months from now we might notice a difference, right? Just as
Yeah.
incremental. So small disciplines is another non-negotiable type of term, right? To me, that we can just, it doesn't have to be huge. In fact, most of our disciplines, if we did the small ones, the big ones would happen, right?
As somebody else says, improve by 1%, just get 1% better every day or 1% better every week. And before you know it, that 1% turns into, because 1% compounded, you're moving mountains in a year's time. So we don't need
300, if you
to,
did it daily, 365%, isn't that? I
yep,
mean, I'm
it'd
not
be
a
a full turnaround.
mathematician, but
Full turnaround, yeah. Item number 7 is don't bring a perfectionist attitude towards imperfectionism. Remember, the baby steps are often what we do. So that's exactly where where you just took us was into tip number 7. Yeah, we don't need to bring a perfectionist attitude into perfectionism. That's kind of an interesting saying to me that like I think it's authenticity, if we're just truly authentic and if we show up with kindness in our heart and you talked about unconditional love in your introduction, that you lead with that you see everyone through those unconditionally loving eyes. And I think that's what this number 7 means to me, is that do the best that you can and do it with kindness, love, and respect for other people and for yourself. And we don't have to worry about if it's perfect or imperfect. It will be perfect just the way that it is, versus thinking it needs to be something it's not. And perfectionism is defined differently by other people. So even when we're doing something perfect, somebody will find fault in it because it's human nature. So give yourself a break and don't worry about being perfect. Worry about being, loving, kind, and respecting yourself and others, and continuing to move forward in the best possible way that you can, doing the best that you can at 9 a.m. and the best that you can at 9 p.m. and allow room for that 1% improvement, those small micro changes that will cause things to be better next time. But we don't have to stop perfectionism from getting us to move forward. Do you have any final thoughts on that? Those were mine.
well, the grace of is, for instance, New Year's resolutions, right? We gave, we make these, we're going to do these. And I think last Thursday was the give up, most people have given up by then.
Resolution quit day, as they call it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what if you gave yourself the grace, go, you know what? I really, I messed up. Let me renew. It's not a fatal error forever, right? And another Seth Godin thing I saw is good is not as soon is not as good as now. So when he's talking about shipping things, soon
Mhm.
we got, well, yeah, soon, tomorrow. I'll do that later. Uh, or just for now, I'm gonna, do these little things when you so soon. Here I lost my whole train of thought there.
When will
But
now be the
when
right time? That's I've heard
yeah,
that.
there's
Yeah.
yeah, and better, so give yourself the grace to restart. Restart. You may not have, I mean, I know I had a whole big old idea I was going to be doing certain things every single morning, but every single morning it hadn't happened. Other life has happened, other things coming in. And I'm like, okay, I can I can pick up where I left off. I
Yeah.
don't have to, it doesn't have to be perfect. And perfection is really a of perfectionism, they do call it one of the, kind of the fatal flaws, right? So it's another form of self deflection.
Deflation. Yeah. It's a big old bear trap that we can often step into, and it all starts in our head. It's how we perceive the things that we do. That chatter, yeah, Charla chatter. She calls it the Charla chatter. So quiet that Charla chatter, or quiet that chatter. I don't want to tag that to your name because you have beautiful chatter. That's why I was excited to have you as a guest and get to chat with you. I love your perspectives. You read so much, you've written so much, you've shared so much, you pour into so many people with your unconditional love and kindness. And it's been an honor to have you here and get to have this conversation. Where can people tune into your show? Let's say that one more time and get folks connected to you. And of course, it'll be in the show notes as well.
I want to, unconditional love is my message, really. I just want to add
Mhm.
this unconditional love. And in my tiny books, Candy Bar Hugs, it doesn't take much to make a difference. I mention unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, not unconditional boundaries. So I usually like to add that when you have a message of unconditional love, love as God loves, that doesn't mean your boundaries have to be broken. So I just like to add that so for the thought. CharlaAnderson.com is my website, always evolving. And you can get my books on Amazon, these two books on Amazon. The CharlaAnderson.com. My show, winwinwomen.tv/The Charla Anderson Show, 1 o'clock live every Wednesday on winwinwomen.tv.
Beautiful. And then Charla also has a coaching program, and you can find all that information on her website. And
Just
I will,
email me,
oh,
charlaanderson.com, charla@charlaanderson.com. On my website, uh, you can also schedule a time with me and download a really remarkable, like goal setting booklet.
if you need some goal setting, pop over to Charla at charlaanderson.com and grab that. Of course, I'm here to listen to you and help you to improve your brand, your social media marketing. And if you would like to review what it is that you're doing to promote yourself or get clear on your mission and how you're showing up in the world, let's have a conversation. You can pop over to Lisa Mosbey, and that's Lisa MOSBEY.com, and book 30 minutes with me as well. So thanks so much for tuning in. Let's pivot and grow together this year, folks. I want to see how you can improve 1% each week. What will that look like at the end of the year? What do you want to make a change in your life to do for the better, to do for good? I'd love to hear about it. So share it with us, whether it's on social media, send private messages. My guests are here to support you. I invite them here to pour into you. So I hope we did that today. And I want you to come back next week where we're talking about 5 micro learning tips to improve knowledge and skills. We're going to talk about micro learning. How do we do those things fast and easy so we can fit them into our hectic, busy schedule? So come on back next week. Thanks so much for being here. We appreciate you. Have a great week.